Alright, welcome back to the channel. And today we are going to be making some movement trays, specifically for the old world. And we're going to be doing this as simply as possible. I know there are a lot of ways to get your hands on movement trays. You can buy them, you can 3D print them, you can make them. But this video specifically is for people maybe just getting into the game or who've never messed with movement trays before, and to make them as simply as possible. So, the only things you will need are a ruler, some sort of piece of sandpaper. In this case, it's a homemade emery board, but just something to sand the little ends of the wood with. Some basswood strips, or really any kind of wood strips will work just fine. I get these in packs of 100 for $6. You can get them at Hobby Lobby, Michael's, probably any other craft store, Amazon, pretty much anywhere, and they are super cheap. Then a piece of foam core. This is just what is this, quarter inch foam core maybe, or 1/8 inch? I don't know. It's foam core. It's the default thickness for foam core. Then an X-Acto knife, a pencil, and a hot glue gun, which is warming up as we speak. So I am making this movement tray specifically for a unit of 20 Phoenix Guard. They are on 25mm bases. So that means my movement tray needs to be 5 inches wide. I know 25 mil is not an inch, but when I do 5 inches, that means I'll have a tiny little bit of wiggle room at the end, which means it'll be a lot easier to get my figures in and out. The other reason that I'm making it specifically for that unit is because I like to make movement trays that specifically go with my units. I don't like to make universal ones that then I have to move around. So, for example, this is a unit that is in my Warriors of Chaos army. This is their movement tray. Their movement tray never leaves them, so I don't have to, when I'm going to set up a game, I don't need to go hunting through my army boxes looking for my movement trays. These guys just always live on this movement tray, and that's forever. Same with this guy, this unit. This is also sort of an odd unit. It's 6 Chaos Warriors. It's not a super common thing. You don't often just run 6 guys on 30mm bases. So when I make my own, this is just their movement tray forever. And it just works just fine. All right, we are back and we can get started. So, like I said, I'm going to measure 5 inches here on the front. And that will give me just a little bit of wiggle room to help get the miniatures in. Then I'm going to come on the other side here and do the same thing. And these really don't have to be exact. I'm already building in some wiggle room, but if there's a little bit more wiggle room, it's not the end of the world. So then I will just mark that line and do that. And then this unit is going to be 4 ranks deep. So we'll come here and measure 4. And then same thing over here. And measure 4. And connect the dots. And then you can just follow along the line if you want. I like to put the ruler back along the line when I cut. This is not a metal-edged ruler, so I do need to be careful. In a perfect world, I would be using a metal-edged ruler, but this is just the one I grabbed. And that's so that if your blade wanders, you don't end up slicing into your ruler. It just hits the metal. So I make a score first. And then I'll just go through as many times as it takes to cut through. There we go. Then we'll do the same thing on this side. Make a score. And then cut through. There we go. So then, now that we have our tray there, we need a way to prevent the figures from falling off when we move the tray. So that's where our basswood comes in. So first, I will line up 2 of these strips on the sides here. And then I'll take my 3rd strip, because we want to account for the width of the wood here. I'll go to the very edge of that, This is not a scientific process, because realistically I would measure this, measure these, then measure along it, but it's fine. Like I said, if there's a little bit of slop in this, not the end of the world. So we'll just mark that, cutting that off. And then we will do the same thing with these. Go to the edge, mark a line, cutting that off. And then on this side, all the way to the edge, mark a line, cutting that off. All right, so then you just need to actually make the cuts. I'm using an X-Acto knife just because I'm trying to keep this video as simple as possible with as few needed tools as possible. You could use like a little handsaw to cut these, but a knife works just fine. Basswood isn't as soft as wood can be, but it's pretty soft, so the knife will go through it pretty quickly. All right, we are back and the cuts are all made. So now we're going to attach them to our board. So for this, we're going to use some hot glue, like I said. And because we're attaching to foam, we need to be a little bit careful. So first I'm just going to check, yep, I did make the right cut. So we're going to take our hot glue gun and just do a very thin bead along the wood here. But like I said, because we're against foam, this hot glue can get hot enough to actually melt that foam. And so once we make our bead, what we want to do is just hold this in the air for a couple seconds. Let it start to dry. Don't want to hold it too long because then it will completely dry. And then once it's cooled for a couple seconds, then we can put it onto the foam. So just line it up there and then push it down. And if you do this improperly, as in if your glue is too hot, right here you'll see a little indent in the foam, and that's where the foam has melted from the glue. And sometimes you can get away with it and it'll still adhere, but it will be a much weaker bond than this. This should hold up pretty much indefinitely. If it starts to melt the foam, it'll eventually come apart. We don't want that. So we're going to do the same thing for the other side. Make sure it's the correct length, and it is. Then make a thin bead running down it. Wait a second or two. This is a pretty thin bead, so we don't have to wait that long. And then line it up on your edge. And push it down. There we go. And then finally, the front. We'll make sure that we have cut the proper length, and we have. So then we'll do the same thing. Give it a couple seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then make sure to line it up on the edge. And then push it down. And then if it's this looks pretty good, but if for whatever reason it's sticking out a little bit, that end might be sticking out just a tiny bit, we can come in and just sand that right off. No problem. So that's pretty much done right there. However, as you can see from the previous examples I showed you, I like to match my movement trays to the bases. I don't know exactly how I'm going to base my High Elves yet, and this is for a unit of High Elf Phoenix Guard. So I won't actually do anything yet to this movement tray, other than I may black out this line right here. But otherwise, until I determine my base scheme, that's pretty much done. So now you should be seeing some pictures of the Phoenix Guards sitting in the movement tray. And that's pretty much it for this video. Hopefully that was instructive and you can go and make your own movement trays. It's pretty simple. And like I said, if you're new to the game or never really messed with movement trays before, this is a very accessible way to make lots of movement trays very quickly. But regardless, thank you everybody for watching, and I will see you on the next one.